Welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. I almost started this off with welcome to Pickleball Improvement, which is the therapy for you, but it is pickleball therapy, so we're going to go with that. And I'm glad to have you with us this week's podcast. We're going to be talking about a couple of interesting things. I've been reading the book, listening to it because I like Audible, but basically reading the book, The Inner Game of Tennis by Tim Gallwey. It's one of the original books in the mental side of the game, on the mental side of the game. And it's a fantastic read, really interesting stuff. So we're going to be chatting about some of the concepts in there today or this week. And we're also going to be chatting in the riff about empathy and how it applies to pickleball. So we're going to get ready for the podcast. If you want to have the most fun you've ever had on the pickleball court while at the same time learning the skills and strategies that you need to play your best pickleball, check out our VI Pickleball camps. If you want to be notified of upcoming camps and also just want to stay in touch and know what's going on with VI Pickleball, make sure you subscribe to our mailing list at wearepickleball.com. Just go in there, give us your email address, and we in turn will tell you when our next camps are coming up. This much fun should be illegal. In reading Tim Gallwey's book, The Inner Game of Tennis, it's a fascinating read. I highly recommend it to you. I'll give you a link in the notes below so you can get your own copy of the book. Again, it's a fantastic book. And even though it's the inner game of tennis, just a lot of times in these situations, just eliminate tennis and call it the inner game of pickleball, and it works perfectly fine. We also are real big fans of Coach Peter Scales' book, Mental and Emotional Training, again, for tennis. But again, you can eliminate that. Compete, Learn, Honor. I'll link to that down below as well. Both are really good books. Coach Pete's book gives you a really good framework for having a healthy relationship with the game of pickleball, with any game, but in our case with the game of pickleball, and helping you frame out or conceptualize how it is that we engage in this sport that we have grown to love, and really gives you good context there, and also on how to improve, how to learn and just compete and honor the game and keep growing. Tim Gallwey's book, I'm sure he's Coach Gallwey, but Tim Gallwey's book talks more about kind of the inner workings of how we improve and how we can deal with ourselves in order to quiet that part of ourselves that is just always yapping at us. And I'll get to that more in a second, explaining that. But he really deals well with how to quiet our mind, and how to allow our body, which already knows how to do most of what you want it to do anyway, how to let it do its business, right? How to let it go about playing the game, moving around the court, hitting balls and things like that. And so I thought it'd be helpful to talk a little bit about that process and the way that Tim Gallwey frames out our work when we're out on the pickleball court, or our playing when we're on the pickleball court, and how that can help us with our game. So what he talks about is an interesting thing. So here's the I'll just frame it out for you. So basically, you're on a pickleball court and you got a floater. The score is 10-9-2. You're side serving, and you get a pop-up floater, and what do you know? You hit it right into the net, right? And so what happens when that occurs, right? So you hit the ball into the net. What happens to a lot of us is we have this conversation in our heads where basically you have this conversation where it's basically, how could you miss that shot? I can't believe you missed that shot. It can devolve where you say, how did you miss that shot? I can't believe you missed that shot. You're not a good pickleball player. What are you doing out here? You're embarrassing yourself, and you just keep on going down this negative path, right? But what's interesting about it is, let's go to the beginning of it. So there's how did you miss that shot, right? Or, what did you do? Well, that implies or suggests a conversation. And a conversation normally has two people, right? Or two beings, two entities that are talking to each other. But in this case, the question that Tim Gallwey asks is, well, who's talking to who, right? Who's saying, how did you miss that shot? To whom? And he identifies them as self one and self two. And I thought that was really helpful. So you have self one is the one that is asking the question. So it's the one that's saying, how did you miss that shot? Self two is the one that hit the shot. So the entity that hit the ball is self two, and the entity that's yakking in the ear and questioning what self one did is self one. So you have this inner conversation going on all the time, right? When you're out on the pickleball court, if you're most of us, right? If you reflect on your pickleball play, you have this conversation where it's like, I wonder if this is going to happen. I wonder if I did that well. I can't believe I did that, that shot that poorly, or I can't believe I hit that great shot. Anytime you're having that conversation, right? It's almost like there's two of you. There's self one, the talker, and self two, the doer. And the basic premise from from Tim Gallwey is basically you have to learn how to quiet self one. Self one is oftentimes the part of you that is inhibiting your growth as a player, and also potentially causing you not to enjoy yourself on the court as much as you could. Self two is the doer. So self two is the part of you that knows how to do most things, right? It's the part of you that, when you get up out of bed in the morning, you don't have to tell yourself left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. It just, your body knows, right? You go left foot, right foot till you get to the restroom, wherever you're headed, right? In the kitchen or whatever you're doing. When you go reach for a cup of coffee, right? Or a mug to pour yourself a cup of coffee or a glass of water, you don't need to instruct your arm to extend, grab, retract, bring down. I mean, you don't need all that stuff, right? All that instruction. And the reason you don't need all that instruction is because self two knows how to do most things that you want to do in your life, most things that get you through your days, including, believe it or not, how to hit a ball. If you think about it this way, let's say you rewound to the first time you ever held a racket, a paddle, anything in your hand, and I hand you that object, right? And I tell you, grab it. Well, you're going to grab it. Your grip may be not exactly perfect, right? Because maybe you don't know, but you're going to grab it in a certain way. And I'm going to tell you, okay, I want you to hit this object, right? A ping pong ball or a tennis ball or a pickleball or whatever it is, a racquetball. I'm going to want you to hit this thing, and I'll point. I'll say, I want you to hit it over there, right? Hit the wall or hit the other court or whatever. And I'm going to let you do it. Your body already knows, has a pretty good idea of how to do that. Your body understands, okay, paddle, ball, send it a distance. I'm gonna basically smack the ball, right, with this paddle or racket that this person gave me to make the ball go that way. You don't need a lot of instruction to be able to accomplish that objective. That is self two doing its job without self one having to tell it every little detail of what to do. You'd like to help your friend or family member learn how to play pickleball, but how? Now it's easy. Pick up a copy of Play Pickleball, A Beginner's Guide. It's the most complete guide to playing pickleball. Available as a digital download or in hard copy at intopickle.com or at Amazon. Let's keep growing the sport. What happens a lot of times is when we get anxious or not stressed, but anxious, or when we're not able to do the job well on the court, it's because we're allowing self one to really mess up self two. We're basically having self one just jabber at self two. That makes it impossible for self two to do anything, because self two's sitting there going like, I do it, but you're just in my ear all the time, right? You're just like the backseat driver, just peppering me with information, not letting me do my job. So the point of it is that if you can calm down self one, what you'll be surprised at is how well self two will be able to do what you want it to do. In other words, you'll let self two be its own thing and do most of its own thing. You're better off than having self one jabbering it out all the time. And one technique that he recommends for quieting self one, actually I'll give you a couple of different ones, but one of the ones that he talks about is focusing on the ball. And now this is important. It's not just focusing on the ball. That's not enough, because your mind is, self one needs to be occupied. It's almost like a child. You need to keep it busy. And it's super easy for self one to keep an eye on the ball, right? That's not challenging enough for self one to keep it quiet, keep it busy. What you need to do is, in our sport, in tennis, you would be looking at the seams of the ball. The ball has like seams on it, if you've ever seen a tennis ball. So you'd be looking at the seams and how they're moving. In our sport, you would focus on the holes in the pickleball. So you're going to basically really focus on the holes in the pickleball. You're going to try and see which way are the holes spinning. Are they spinning to the left, to the right, towards you, or away from you, right? The top. So are they coming towards you, away from you, left or right? That'll then, what that does is it keeps self one happy and busy. Self one is, it's like a kid and you gave him a brand new set of Legos or something, and that kid is just busy as a bee playing with those Legos, not worried about anything else going on. Same thing. Get your mind to focus on this thing, on these holes on the ball and how they're moving, and that'll really help. Another technique you can use is you can actually, so this one you can do it verbally if you're practicing and you know the people and they're okay with it, or you can do it in your head if it be weird for you or weird for them. But what you're going to do is as the ball comes towards you, again, you're focusing on everything, but as soon as the ball bounces, you're going to say bounce. So you're going to go bounce, hit. So when it bounces, you call a bounce. When it hits, you say hit. Same thing on the other side. So anytime the ball bounces, no matter where it bounces, you're going to say the word bounce. And then whenever you hit it, you're going to say the word hit. And just saying bounce, hit, will not only occupy self one, it actually has the benefit also of keeping you focused in the game and also getting your timing down, right? So you'll have a better timing on when the ball's doing, what time is your opponent hitting it, when are you hitting it? You'll get better on that. But the important thing here is that it keeps self one quiet. And whenever you can keep self one quiet, self two can hopefully shine. And the other thing that happens is as you do more and more of this is the more you're able to let self two do its business, and the more you're able to trust self two, then that means that self one will start trusting self two. And self one won't be like always on top of self two for every little thing that happens, trying to correct it with every little minutia as you go along. So try that out. And again, if you want to read the book, I highly recommend it to you. It was super helpful. I think these are the sort of books, Coach Pete's book and Tim Gallwey's book are the sorts of books that you get them. And whenever things get a little sideways, because they will, in our journeys, we tend to, regress sometimes. So we'll take, hopefully 3 steps forward, and then you're going to take 1 step back, and then maybe 4 steps forward and 1 step back. And sometimes 1 step forward and 2 steps back. That's life. But what you want to do, these books can help you keep going in a positive direction on the mental part of the game. And I don't know about you, but without the mental part of the game, it'd be very hard for me to play pickleball because I need the mind to be out there doing its thing and hopefully quietly on self one. So anyway, check that out. And today we're going to talk on the riff. We're going to talk about empathy. I think it's a really important concept that we sometimes lose sight of on the pickleball court. And we're going to talk about empathy, and we're going to talk about the ladder. Let's talk about the ladder when we talk about empathy. So if you're into that, stay tuned for the riff. So the verdict is in, and a paddle that CJ Johnson, myself, Tony Roig, and my wife Jill are all playing with is the new Icon paddle, a relatively new Icon paddle from Diadem Pickleball. We've actually been playing with this paddle for several months now, and we wanted to make sure it performed up to our expectations, and I got to tell you, this is an awesome paddle. It has some of the best playability of any paddle that we've ever played with, and Jill's arm that used to have the ice after she played no longer needs icing. So it's an awesome paddle. If you want to read more about the paddle, I'll link to the full review down in the show notes. And if you use the code VI Pickleball at Diadem Pickleball, you'll get our discount. If you decide to give the Diadem Icon paddle a try, send me an email, tony@wearepickleball.com, and let us know how it went. All right, so what are we talking about when we talk about empathy? What in the world is this about? Well, let's talk about it. So empathy is obviously, not obviously, but empathy is I'm paraphrasing here, but it's, like trying to see things through another person's eyes, trying to put yourself in their shoes, trying to, walk them out in their shoes sort of thing, trying to understand things from another person's perspective, right? And I think it's something that can get lost in the pickleball world, particularly as we get busy, and we get to playing and we get to playing, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people want to play better games. They want to play on the upper court. They want to keep moving up, and that's fantastic, right? To have personal growth objectives and to keep on improving and getting more confident and better in the game, right? But what we can't forget when we're doing that, right, is we can't forget empathy, right? So we can't forget about other players who, just like us, right, they want to move up, right? And so they want to play up. And what about their, what they want, right? What those players want. And so I think there's a balance that can be achieved, which is where hopefully you're able to play up into some games that you want to play with, right? Play into. But along the same vein, keep in mind that there's players, behind you, right? That want to come up into your court. So keep in mind not just where you want to go, but keep in mind the players behind you that want to come towards your court. And think of it like a ladder, right? So we're all kind of climbing this ladder of pickleball, right? So we're moving and improving and keep on going, right? But let's not get to where we want to go and then reach back and pull that ladder up, right? And say, nobody else can, I'm not responsible anymore for the people behind me. Let that ladder continue behind you as well, right? And allow the players, not only allow them to come up the ladder, but help them come up the ladder. Give them a helping hand. Play a game with them, right? If they're open to it, not always, but I try to remember to ask, may I suggest something? And then if they're open to it, the player's open to it, I'm more than happy to share my knowledge with them. That's why CJ at Better Pickleball and We Are Pickleball, and myself with Into Pickle and We Are Pickleball, that's why we do these videos, right? To help other players, to share the knowledge that we have about this game and help empower them. So remember empathy when you're out there. Remember to, remember that just as you've gotten better, right? You weren't always as good as you are now. There's players behind you that also want to get better. And to the extent you can help them when you're out there playing, try and spend a game or two playing with players that are trying to move up in the game. And it'll definitely, it'll make their lives better and probably improve yours too. So give that a try next time you're out there. Hope you enjoyed the podcast this week. Have a nice week. Look forward to meeting you again in the podcast next week. And please give it a rating. If you give it a rating, it helps other players find this content. And if you like the podcast, please share it with your friends. Remember, if you liked it, they probably will too. Be well out there.